Welcome to an hour of Healthmade Radio. Healthmade is a community for natural health seekers where we educate people about common health conditions and share extensive research on the most effective natural health treatments and promote legislation that protects our health freedoms. Our core concept belief is in innate intelligence and healing power of the body, and if properly supported spiritually, emotionally, and nutritionally, it can find its way back to health. Healthmade Radio will bring information from integrative health experts throughout the world. Check us out at healthmade.co. Health is what you make it. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt, and I'll be your host. Today's guest is Dimitri Moraitis. He is the co-founder and co-spiritual director of Spiritual Arts Institute. Dimitri is an illuminated metaphysical teacher, healer, and co-author of numerous books, as well as co-creator with Barbara at the SAI programs, course curriculums, and numerous workshops. Co-founder and co-spiritual director of Spiritual Arts Institute, Dimitri has been instrumental in bringing Spiritual Arts Institute to the place it is today as a premier metaphysical school. With Barbara, he is the co-author of the international bestseller, Change Your Aura, Change Your Life, Communicate with the Divine, Karma and Reincarnation, The Healing Power of Your Aura, and their newest book, Heaven and Your Spiritual Evolution. He is an eloquent speaker on a wide variety of spiritual topics, has lectured across the country, appeared on numerous radio shows, and leads a workshop and training classes offered at the Institute with Barbara. And you can find more information about that over at spiritualarts.org. Dimitri, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Oh, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, so I'm really excited to hear.
Yeah.
I know, Barbara, you worked along with Barbara Martin for so long. She's also
Right.
one of the kind of the metaphysical teachers of our time, and she was actually born with a gift of seeing kind of auras and the little subtleties. And can you tell me a little bit about her background, and then I
Sure.
want to kind of hear how you two connected and how that looked like.
Well, the book, as you mentioned, Heaven and Your Spiritual Evolution, is based on her clairvoyant experiences over her lifetime. And it's a fascinating story. She was born, basically, yes, seeing the auras. This was during the Depression era. So there was no books about it. There was no radio shows. There was nothing, So she didn't understand what she was seeing, but she knew, when people have these beautiful colors, she's attracted to them. And when they don't have it, she was repelled. Her father, interestingly enough, was a Greek Orthodox priest. You could marry in the Greek Orthodox faith if you do it before you're ordained. So he married, they had 6 kids, and he was also a builder of churches. So they would send him around the country. The family kept shuffling around, building all these churches. And little Barbara is developing these spiritual gifts. She said, I got into trouble, though. For example, one time there was a church being inaugurated, and the archbishop was there, and little 4-year-old Barbara is looking at the archbishop's aura and seeing not these beautiful colors, but these sort of, she said, grotesque colors. But the bishops on either side of him had these beautiful auras. So, at the end, you're supposed to kiss the hand of the officiating, in this case, archbishop. Little Barbara, daughter of the priest, in front of the whole congregation, sort of yells out, oh, no, I'm not kissing his hand. He's a monster. He eats children. And she said that was first of many spankings I got. So she learned to keep quiet about her gifts. And also at a young age, she did start to have these sort of out-of-body experiences where she would be taken to the other side. She said, I knew I wasn't dying. I knew I wasn't dreaming. I wasn't afraid because there were beautiful places I was going to. So I knew there was life beyond the physical veil. But when she was 11, they were in Kansas City, Missouri, and there she was in a theater company, doing acting as a little kid. And the leader, the owner, Dorothy, she pulled her in one Saturday and basically said to her, you can see the aura, can't you? And Barbara's jaw dropped. She said, "Is that what it's called?" She didn't even have a name for it. And she said, "Yes, I'm a hermetic scientist. My mother, grandmother, hermetic scientist. I can see the aura too, and I'd like to help you understand your gifts." So she privately trained her, started to teach her how to interpret the auric energies. And then when they moved to Los Angeles, because her father built a church in Pasadena there, the mother fell in love with Los Angeles. This was during the golden age of Hollywood days. And basically said to her husband, "Look, you go wherever else the diocese sends you. We're staying here in California, the family." Barbara started to get involved with the showbiz world. And actually, she was getting kind of famous. But her inspiration told her, "No, you're meant to go the metaphysical route." So she met another woman, and this woman really trained her to be a teacher. She was quite a mystic herself. She never went on the lecture platform, but she told Barbara, "You're going to go on the lecture platform." Again, this is even before Kirlian photography, so no one heard of things like auras. So when she actually did start getting calls to lectures, she again was surprised, and eventually it launched her career. And in those days, she said, there wasn't many people doing it, so I just would say the word aura, and people would, she would start to collect large groups of people. Now, years later, now I came to Los Angeles initially to pursue a career in film and television, and I was starting to have what I call these sort of inspirational moments. I didn't even know what metaphysics was at that time, but it got so strong, I eventually had this rather dramatic moment. I call it my Saul in the Road to Damascus moment, and it was my spiritual awakening. When I realized it was metaphysics, I couldn't get enough of it. And about a year later, I met Barbara at a dinner party, and she was leading a meditation. First time I ever meditated, I completely felt at home, like this ancient door opening up. And we had this beautiful conversation. She says I was interrogating her. I thought it was a lively conversation. But when she started talking about the other side and her experiences there, I basically said, "This is the one I have to study with." And I became her student. But then very quickly, we both loved to write. So I started writing with her. And as things progressed, I didn't realize that eventually she was preparing me to be a teacher too. So we started writing. When we founded the Institute, we started, we had all these books. We wanted to write a whole series on what we're calling the 7 spiritual arts. And this one is not only about life on the other side, but it's about the big picture. Why are you even involved in spirituality? What does it mean to even grow spiritually? So it's trying to answer some of the big questions that we all ask.
And one of my shows radio shows I did, I was interviewing a doctor who's a hospice doctor, or the head doctor of a big hospice, and they did studies on all the people that were transitioning into, to death. And so it was one of the largest studies that they did, about like 2,000 some people, and they had all agreed to communicate as to what they were experiencing. And so he was noticing how during that process, they were growing, spiritually, emotionally, and it was a growth process that was taking place as they were transitioning. So I was wondering then, does that continue when you get to the other side?
Absolutely. The transition, we've come to dread it. Woody Allen said, "I'm not afraid of dying. I just don't want to be there when it happens." We have to think of it. It's a death here, but it's a graduation on the other side, and it is literally like going from one country to another. Yes, the body goes. The family that we love doesn't go over with us or things like that, but we go over and we continue very much on the other side. We have to think of Earth more like a school. We come here for a certain period of time, and we have to think of the other side as our real home. So that's really home. We come here to learn, to grow, to experience life, to mature, and then we gather all those experiences up. We take them over to the other side, and the journey most definitely continues there. For example, let's say you were a good family man, and you raised your family, and you were very happy, and Let's say you had a good steady job, maybe you were an accountant or something like that, but you had this beautiful voice, maybe a tenor or something like that, or baritone, and you never really got to develop it. It was something, maybe it was a hobby, you sang at Christmas or something like that, but it was never really a focus because you felt, your life purpose was in a different direction, but the desire was there. So when you cross over to the other side, you may continue that work in music if the desire and love is there. And this has to also do with loved ones. They say no love is ever lost. So if someone you love has crossed over to the other side and you love them and they love you, you're going to have a reunion. And that even goes for pets. So death does not sever the bonds of love. And we should really help people when they are in that hospice scenario to relieve any anxiety and to know that life really does go on. And it's okay. If this is truly your time, then you've done your work. Now, I do notice that some people, when they get near the transition time, it's not so much that they're afraid of dying, it's that they realize all the things they never did. And at the time of your life, you think, oh, I'll live forever. I'll have time to do this. I'll have time to do that. So really what we have to pay attention to is now. Are you doing the things in your life now that really matter? And if today was your day for crossing over, do you feel you've really been doing the things you need to do? And if the answer is no, you may need to recalculate. I mean, look what's happening in the job market right now after the pandemic. People are not rushing back, not because maybe they don't need to work, but they're reevaluating their lives. They're trying to decide, was I really doing something that I was finding fulfilling? So we don't hopefully have to wait till near the transition point to do that. We could start a lot earlier. And this also ties into another important point, that the other side is not just for the time when you die. You and I and everyone here is receiving inspiration from those spiritual worlds every day of our life. Every great idea we've had has come from those inner worlds. So the other side is about now. It's about connecting to that inspiration today. And yes, that will help you when it is our time to go home.
I love it. Let's take a quick break. You're listening to Healthmade Radio. I am here with Dimitri Moraitis. He is the co-author of Heaven and Your Spiritual Evolution. It's a mystic's guide to the afterlife, reaching ever highest potential that you can by understanding what's going on in that place. Yeah, because it's getting ready for that space becomes so crucial with our life here. So we'll be right back. Welcome back to Healthmade Radio. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt. I'm here with Dimitri Moraitis, and we are discussing the afterlife, heaven and your spiritual evolution. So, Dimitri, so we are then able to, and you were talking about pets, and I remember he was this gentleman that was doing the study, how pets would then come, dead pets that had lived with them and that he loved, or she had loved, they would come and then visit and then comfort, so that they would feel comfortable in that transition. My question is, you have these people that, we're talking to people that may have done something horrible here on earth, like somebody that has maybe murdered somebody else, or they've gone through a very traumatic event, dying, that where they will kind of at that last moment, they're holding fear or they're holding anger or something. I mean, how is that able to be processed, and what does that look like on the other side?
Boy, that's a great question. First of all, let's start with the metaphysical point of view that there is no sin past redemption. From the metaphysical point of view, there's no such thing as eternal damnation. Yes, there are realms on the other side that are not very pleasant. And if we have done things that are not great, especially if it's chronic things, some people can end up in a place like that, but it's not permanent. It's a temporary situation, because the key to the other side is the light that you earn, the power that you gain. Now, the challenge is when we make mistakes in our life, first of all, if there is any chance of correcting it, do not wait. If you've hurt somebody now and they're out there somewhere, for goodness sakes, ask forgiveness, try to make up to it. You know, it's not easy bringing people together to work things out. And if that person is even remotely in your life still right now, you want to try to fix it as best you can. We often condemn ourselves. You know, we hold ourselves to the mistake, and that does condemn us instead of redeeming, instead of working our way through it. Now, if it's past that point, if the person is no longer on the earth or whatever, you can still do a lot of redemption work. I used to be in the film biz world, and there was a gentleman, very famous, I won't go into who he was, but he shared with me a personal story. He had helped make a scary movie once, and he was young, and his name was still in the book, and this woman called and literally said, I want to kill this person just like it was done in the movie, and it was asking for advice, you know, and he didn't quite take her that seriously. And a couple of days later in the paper, it was shown, you know, she did it. She did it. Now, he was not directly responsible for her actions, of course, but he did feel, you know, I probably could have done more than I did. So what did he do for the next 10 years? He volunteered in an ER room working with people in life or death situations. And he felt like that, and on top of his film work. And he felt like that was my way to atone. That was my way for sort of balancing the slate. So you want to do everything that you can. Another thing that's so important is, goodness, don't go to your grave with a grudge. If other person hurt you and you say, I'll never forgive them as long as I live, that is not going to help you, and it's not going to help them. There is always justice in even what appears an unjust world. Sometimes it doesn't happen in the time that we want it to happen, but it means we still have to live by those laws. Now, if I cross over to the other side and I have done something wrong, not good, and I never understood it, in other words, maybe I justified what I did and I didn't realize that, you know, it was wrong. Well, on the other side, they will try to show us what happened. They will try to, you know, there is this time where we go, they call them the Lords of Karma, and they do reveal our book of life, and we do see what happened on earth, and we don't see it the way we remembered it. Subjectively, we see it in an objective light, and we see our true motivations for the things we did, not the rationales that we were creating for ourselves. And they don't do this as a sense of punishment or reward. They do it for education, to say, look, here you succeeded. Look how well you did here, but here not so well. And then you're given this chance. Now, I'm going to bring up one other big subject just for a moment. In metaphysics, we do believe in reincarnation. We do believe in the idea that you come back again. And that's often sometimes when it's a big one like murder, you said, sometimes they have to come back together and work it out in another life. But eventually we correct it. Eventually we get it right.
So so what happens then? So you have a person, they die. I mean, we hear stories, walking through this tunnel of light, and you see a caring individual at the other side that take care of you and guide you. I mean, what happens as and these are the near-death experiences that that people have written about. Is that what truly happens, and then what happens beyond that?
Well, that's again a great question. So the near-death experience, we do have to remember one huge difference with near-death and transition is, with transition you're not coming back, right? It's a one-way ticket. Yeah.
Near death is near death. Yeah, it's not fully.
Exactly. You're going and you're coming back. Now, people have had life-changing experiences with that because it woke something up in them, and they were never the same person again. I remember one story a person said, it wasn't a pleasant one. He had a serious drinking problem, and when he had this out of body, he was seeing these very unpleasant entities and things like that. And he said, I really had to fight him off to get into the light. And when that experience was over, he came back. He said, I never touched a drop of alcohol again. So these things are life transforming many times, even when they're sometimes scary experiences. And of course, how many times they said, oh, I saw my grandfather, but they said, you can't stay here. It's not your time. You've got to go back. That's a very common theme when they have these out of body. Transition is different because, again, you are severing the silver cord. So there is no returning back to that physical body. You move on in your astral body, in your spiritual body, and you actually transition to the other side. Now, some are asking, well, what about when you see like ghosts and things like that, or people on the earth plane? Well, those are people that have transitioned, but they are what they call earthbound. There's so much thinking in terms of only earth that they don't even realize there is another side. So they're kind of caught in this in-between state. And it's always a good idea, like even at a funeral, because sometimes they come in from the other side for the funeral, say, no, follow the angels home. Your time on earth is over. You know, you've got another adventure to go to, and we'll see each other again. And then that helps. Now, when it's a for real transition, you are taken to this place where you actually have to be told that you died. And for some, that's alone a shocking experience because, first of all, everything here is there. So there are places on the other side that look so familiar. Some people think, well, I haven't died. I'm sitting here talking to you. You're talking to me. I see you. You see me. And when they realize they're not where they think they are, they sometimes do go into a type of shock. So it takes a while to adjust. No, you're not part of the earth anymore. They do take you to these healing places to recuperate, especially if you've been going through a long illness. And then it's up to you, but often you do go back to earth to visit the people and places that you love and to kind of see things in that light. And that experience can be very pleasant, again, if you left your house in order, and sometimes not so pleasant if you realize, gosh, I didn't resolve this with this person, with this person, with this person. But again, they will give you the chance to work that out later. So that's sort of the initial. And then there's, again, the review. But once what we call the transition process is over, and you even have some of your reunions, then there's a whole life over there. You have a whole life on the other side. And you have things you accomplish, projects you're involved in, people you're engaged with, and you're going to stay there for a while until, yes, it's your time to come back for another lap on Earth.
That's right. Let's take a quick break. You're listening to Healthmade Radio. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt. I'm here with Dimitri Moraitis. He is the co-author of Heaven and Your Spiritual Evolution, A Mystic's Guide to the Afterlife and Reaching Your Highest Potential. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Healthmade Radio. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt. I'm here with Dimitri Moraitis, and we are talking about the afterlife. So, and I've had friends that help them. You're talking about people being, stuck here or not transitioning, where, it is almost like, entities or spirits were coming to him, because they didn't transition, and they were coming, and he was kind of guiding them through that process, so that they're able to transition appropriately then to the afterlife. So with what was it? Another book that I read, it was called Life in Between Lives. Where like you're talking about the review board, where you then going through and you review your life, and that kind of prepares you for kind of the next step. Is that your understanding as well?
Right. Well, there's two really fascinating things that do happen. So yes, you definitely have your life reviewed. And again, if Earth is school, well, at some point you got to have a review to see how you did at school. How did you perform? Where were you successful? Where were you not? And you see it in this very objective light. And it's done out of love. It's not, again, done out of punishment or reward. They want to educate you. And if there are these areas that are left taken care of, they do focus on that so you can, clean it up. What do they say? The chain is only as strong as its weakest link. Now, after you have your full life over there, whatever it is, and By the way, there are even homes you live in over there. There are sort of types of jobs that you will even have. You're very active there. You're very engaged. There does come this time where they tell you, and by the way, people, so let's say you may know people on the other side that you didn't know here, but you bring back memories, so these beautiful friendships develop. And so it's a wonderful life there. And you, of course, keep developing yourself. You keep strengthening your character, your talent, your spirituality. All that continues to develop there. When Barbara's father crossed over, again, mentioned to you, he was a Greek Orthodox priest, and they took her over there, and he was still conducting a service for sort of Greek-minded souls on the other side, and they were showing her, you see how, he's still a good presenter, you see how he's helping people, and then she met him, and he took her outside to where there were two aunts that had crossed over, and they were together on the other side, and they were kind of sharing thoughts and ideas. So sometimes things over there are not that different from here, but there is this sort of enhancement. Other side, things are flowing more in their divine flow, let's put it that way, and there is this loving support of what we call the hierarchy, and so life is definitely fruitful there. Now, at some point, you're also shown what's called your tapestry of life. So the book of life is a review of what actually happened. Your tapestry is a design of your upcoming incarnation. It's like a vision of the things that you're meant to accomplish. So that when we come into this life, we don't come in with a blank slate. We do come in with certain things. Why did you develop such an interest, not only in health, but in natural health? And that you're, I'm sure, a pioneer in that area. Well, that was no accident. There was a calling for that. And that could have been part of your tapestry of life before you even, came into Earth. And then while you're here, you're meant to weave that tapestry actually in physical life. So we say there's two real important things to pay attention to: your purpose and your potential. You have a spiritual purpose. You have a mark you're meant to reach in this life, and you do have purpose. There's a contribution you're meant to make to the great plan of life. I think of it like if we're meant to build a cathedral, someone's going to be the architect, but someone's going to be the stonemason, another one's going to do the stained glass windows, another one's going to do all the sculptures. We're all going to play a job to do in doing something wonderful collectively. And that's also designed before you even come to this earth. Now, not everything is, but key things, including the people you're meant to marry. Or Barbara mentioned she saw her tapestry, or part of it once, and she saw the children that she was going to have long before she had them. So some of these things are set into motion quite a while ago. And others are dynamics that happen while we're in life because there's free will. Things don't always go according to plan. And there's sometimes changes during life. What if the person I'm meant to marry doesn't marry me or passes on? Well, they have to rewrite that and design it a little differently. But you want to pay attention to those important threads. This is why when we think of the people we're going to marry or the careers, we spend time contemplating, because these aren't little things. These are setting the whole course of our life, and we want to make sure, we're doing the best we can.
Yeah, so you have then the question, you're talking about the tapestry of life, and so then It becomes the big question of being predestined. I mean, destiny, that this is, that my life is already arranged and it's just kind of playing out no matter what. And how much does free will play into it?
Oh, no, it's not like that. It's not like that at all. Again, it wouldn't be school, right? If the lessons were not only prepared ahead of time, but the answers were prepared ahead of time, well, where's the growing? Where's the creativity? Where's you in all of this? A design is just a design. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. You are going to have to use all your talents and more than you think you have to make it a reality. It's kind of like saying there is a blueprint, but it doesn't mean the building is built. and you may discover things as you're building it. Well, you will have to adapt the blueprint. So it's not predestined in that no matter what, it's going to happen. Free will is the number one key, and that's what allows creativity. Otherwise, we're automatons. There is no creativity. It was to talk about something, the angels don't have free will. They're compelled to do what they do by God. No, they do what they do out of free will. That's what brings in the love. That's what brings in the joy, the satisfaction. So while there is a plan of your life, this plan is like part of you. It's bringing out the best of everything in you. So the goal, and you've agreed to it before you came to this earth. You already know on an unconscious level what you're meant to do. And it's part of this bigger picture, but still, your free will, your creativity, all of that is going to get into the picture to actually make it happen. If you meet, let's say, the person you're meant to marry, you're not forced to marry them. You're still going to have to go through all the dating and everything to make it happen. And let's say you do like this person, but you're enamored by somebody else, you could get distracted and marry the other person instead. So listening to your intuition, listening to the divine, one of the big things we emphasize is meditation, because we do need to step back from life during the course of our day to kind of recalibrate, to get in tune with the inner part of us, so that when we're in activity, that activity is in alignment. And I'll add one more note. Meditation is a complement, but different from prayer. Some people say, I pray, that's enough for me. Well, prayer is wonderful. That's your communion. That's your connection with the divine. But then when the divine is giving you, you got to go into meditation. You've got to receive from the divine. It's kind of like a circuit. You need both parts. You need the sending out and you need the receiving.
Great. Well, let's take a quick break. You're listening to Healthmade Radio. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt. I'm here with Dimitri Moraitis. He is the co-author of Heaven and Your Spiritual Evolution, A Mystic's Guide to the Afterlife and Reaching Your Highest Potential. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Healthmade Radio. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt. I'm here with Dimitri Moraitis, and we are discussing what takes place after we die, and what heaven looks like, and what the time spent there looks like as well. So one of the things, a lot of people, they do these, we do regression therapy, and where you kind of look and see you're dealing with a hip pain, and then you find out that maybe that relates to something that happened in some other life. I mean, is that something that is for real? You can then they see that maybe they were part of the French Revolution, and they got shot there, and they haven't really processed that emotionally yet. Or, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, there's no question, let's say even in this life, if I am harboring a pain, let's say from my childhood, and I'm not dealing with it, and it's being stored in that subconscious mind, it will definitely easily manifest physically. I do remember a gentleman that he had this weird bulge in his back, and when I don't know if it was a doctor or if it was a chiropractor that was pressing on it, it immediately rekindled a memory from like 20 years ago. So yes, spiritual ailments will definitely can have physical manifestations, and we have to be very in tune with all of that. Now, there is such a thing as physical karma. If I have not taken care of my body in a past life, or I hurt somebody else in a past life, I can have physical effects in this life. The biblical adage, an eye for an eye, did not mean if you poke my eye out, I get to poke your eye out. It meant if you poke someone's eye out, you will have to go through the experience of blindness to understand what that feels like, because that's how you balance the karmic slate. So yes, physical karma can be definitely very real. And we do have to remember our subconscious mind does keep record not only of this life, but of other lives. Now, they've often asked, why don't I remember my past lives? And I love Gandhi's line, it's nature's kindness. We have enough to deal with in this lifetime, right? Let's say you're married to someone and you're having a great relationship. Do you really need to know 5 lifetimes ago one murdered the other? Which could have happened, especially if you're working it out. There are times where it really doesn't help to have that knowledge. But yes, sometimes we do get stuck. Like, for example, let's say I have an unreasonable fear of the water or an unreasonable fear of heights. Yeah, I could have died by drowning. I could have died by falling off of a cliff. And like you said, I haven't kind of reconciled that fully, even though I'm not in that life anymore. And then in this life, it becomes part of you to work it out. What do they say? If you fall off a horse, get on it quickly again, or you'll never ride a horse again. So if we have those fears, we do want to kind of do our best to conquer them. But the point is, you will be prompted again. Why is it sometimes we meet somebody and there's like this instant, compatibility and enjoyment? Well, maybe you are remembering unconsciously another lifetime where it was a very pleasant exchange, or you meet someone, they've done absolutely nothing wrong, but you have this sort of repulsion to them. It could be an unconscious memory from a past life where you did have an unpleasant exchange. So these things do come into the picture, absolutely.
And also in your book, you use the term, grow to heaven. I mean, so yes. With that, yes. Kind of where I started with the first question, that kind of evolution, we continue to evolve. So there is a way, then to grow to heaven. So it sounds to me like, these different lives, we kind of try to get it right again and again, and then get it better. From my point of view, though, if I look upon me living here, I'm going to screw it up at some point anyway. So it seems like it's going to be hard for me to get a full life right, So how can we grow to heaven?
Well, look, do we learn from our successes or our failures? Often when something is broken, that's the best educational tool. And eventually we are going to get it right. You're right. We're going to and we should feel free to make mistakes, because you learn from those mistakes. Some people are so afraid to do things. Oh, what if it doesn't work out, or I don't do it right, or I don't? It's okay. What we don't want to do, and this is what the higher inspiration has been saying, they tell us not to worry about making mistakes, but they do say sometimes we see you making the same mistake 10, 20, 30 times. Now that we have to really pay attention to, so that we're not doing it. But absolutely, the first chapter in our book, we call it, you don't go to heaven, you grow to heaven. Heaven is a place, but it's also a state of mind. It's a state of consciousness that we're meant to develop here in physical life, not just when we cross over. So we are not suddenly saints when we cross over. We are pretty much in the same vibration we are now. So if we build a heavenly vibration now, here on earth, that's what will help us get to heaven on the other side. And there's a process, like you say, of doing it, and it's a process of lifetimes. Because heaven is an evolutionary, it's a maturing. Sometimes they talk about Earth a little bit like they say the kindergarten planet, and they don't mean this in a derogatory way. They just mean that compared to the spiritual wonders that yet await us, we're still in the beginning stages of it. So if we're in this sort of beginning stage of spiritual development, we have to think of heaven a little bit like maybe graduate school or something like that, and that you don't jump from kindergarten to graduate school all at one time. You go through the other stages, and each stage is beautiful and wonderful. And the other thing I want to emphasize is that the other side is not one place. It's many places. In my Father's house are many mansions. So there are many places, and they're organized according to levels of consciousness. So there are actual places that we can visit and be part of, but they're also states of consciousness we're meant to embody. And when we transition, we go to the dimension of life we've earned the right to be at by the spiritual power we've accumulated during our lifetime. So we say the most precious thing you possess is your divine light, because that you are going to take with you to the other side.
So if you have many mansions, like it says in the Bible, many mansions on the other side, and you're mentioning that the earth is kind of like kindergarten, so why would we go back to kindergarten each time, after each life? Are there other places we would go to other than Earth?
Well, not physically. So when they say that, they mean it in the sense of the kind of the total collective. So right now, the interesting thing about Earth is it's literally a spiritual melting pot. Now, there is a vibration of the Earth itself, a spiritual vibration of the Earth. But as far as people on the Earth, there are those that literally are in the beginning stages of their development and others that are very advanced. So in other words, you could have a Mahatma Gandhi of obviously a high vibration physically standing next to, a Joseph Stalin or something. They could be in the same room together, even though they might be operating at very different vibratory frequencies. On the other side, you wouldn't find it so much like that. You would find people more in their natural, different character traits, but similar vibratory rates. And that allows for that evolutionary process. So no, there will be advanced souls, and they're on this earth right now, and they're learning too. And some of them are making wonderful contributions to Earth. Now, interestingly enough, you don't always know what realm you're come from. There have been heavenly souls, and we've gotten the inspiration. For example, someone like an Abraham Lincoln was actually a heavenly soul that came to Earth on a spiritual mission to help, end slavery and deal with some of the political things of his day. I don't think he was consciously aware that's where he came from, but that gave him the power to do that incredibly difficult job. So there are those that are on the advanced level, and they're advancing even further. Now, some are more famous. You can think of a Mother Teresa, obviously an advanced soul, and she lived a very spiritual life. So, but the beauty is, the other thing is, there are some people that say they're religious, let's say, or say they're spiritual, but they're not really living it. What's the comment? You go to church on Sunday, but you're cheating your partners on Monday. That's not really a spiritual life. There's some that don't even use the word spiritual, but they are living a life of integrity, of high ethics. They live by their highest standards. They're living a spiritual life, even if they aren't labeling themselves that way, and that is helping in their evolution. But I do want to encourage your listeners, if anyone listening here has had their, shall we call it, spiritual awakening, does get this sense there is really something higher spiritually to attain to, that's God knocking on your door. Don't ignore it. Start following that. Make your spiritual growth a higher priority in your life. And not only will it help your spiritual growth, but it will bless all parts of your life and everyone in your life.
I love it. Well, Dimitri, it's been such an honor to have you on the show today. And this is obviously a question that a lot of people are asking themselves because it's, like they're saying, there are only two things that you can't escape, death and taxes. So since it is such a kind of an unknown, it's such a strong veil, in between this life and what happens next, and to have people that have been able to peek through and give the description and give their understanding, so that we can more prepare ourselves and be in a space, so that we can evolve as an individual and maximize our opportunity here on Earth. That becomes such a blessing.
Yeah, well, thank you. And thank you for the good work you're doing. The holistic health is such an important part of life, and it dovetails so beautifully with the spiritual work as well.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And yeah, so your book is wonderful. That blessing of reading it, Heaven and Your Spiritual Evolution, A Mystic's Guide to the Afterlife and Reaching Your Highest Potential. I know you co-authored them with Barbara Martin, who we've been referencing a number of times.
Absolutely. So, and then we do have, I have to comment, the Institute as well, Spiritual Arts Institute, if you're interested in learning more about the training classes and learning how to meditate and all of that. We teach all of that at the Institute.
Wonderful. And people can gain more information at spiritualarts.org. That's in Encinitas in California. Well, thank you so much, Dimitri. That is it for today. You're listening to Healthmade Radio. Remember, check us out at healthmade.co. Health is what you make it. 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 Health